Now, COVID-19, right? As you know, um, do you think that Iman is getting worse or is it getting better? What do you think?
Better.
With COVID-19?
Depending on the person.
Yeah.
For me, it was better, Ustad.
Better, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, I do not want to brag, but I thought I was the only one, you know. So why are we discussing this topic? Now, as you know, right.
I think this also is a bit of a test of as well, like to become independent as well, because before we were dependent on the mosque and the imams, you know.
It is. It
Yeah.
depends. It depends on your, in a
That's
sense
it.
of who you are, isn't it true? Of how you're surrounding, even
Yeah.
in your own household, especially when you are, you're on lockdown and all this. It does depend on what were you before this, right? But I do know for sure that there are a few people of my students whose iman has gone quite bad. So this is something in which, especially after Ramadan, right? Come on, Ramadan is a time in which you and I, alhamdulillah, right, are given the opportunity, right, to boost our iman, isn't it true, right? And this is when we are almost all the time in a constant act of worship, even fasting, right, until about Maghrib time, and then you do your Isha, and then you do Tarawih, and then all this, right? So constantly you're in acts of worship. So in Ramadan, you're expected to have your iman to be increased, inshallah. But understandably, right, when the mosque is closed, still closing now, the mosques, right, you are not able to spend the time in the mosque, right? Of course, it's natural that you and I, when we go to the mosque, our iman would increase, right? We are able to meet fellow brothers, right? Not fellow sisters, isn't it true? Is it fellow sisters? Only fellow brothers, huh? Chat.
To give da'wah.
To give that one. Right? And of course, right, when Shaitan will come back with revenge, right? People, I understand, right? Have all these issues, with, understandably, people are losing jobs, no money, and at least with Ramadan you have Ramadan, right? But after Ramadan, somehow or other, right, that security of iman has been lost in a sense, right? That you're more exposed, right? Especially when Shaitan is always there to constantly trying to upset you and trying to cause you and I to take the deen, right, more in a sense that less seriously, right? And then you also have, for example, less prayer now compared to Ramadan, right? So a lot of things may affect your deen, right? So this is something in which if you know that the iman is affected for whatever reasons, right? And in the first place, is it common for our iman to go down? Yes or no?
Possibly.
It would, isn't it true? It is not abnormal. Even the Sahaba was telling the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? Oh, Messenger of Allah, right? When we were with you, our iman is so high. Yeah, we always think about the hereafter. But once we go back to our own families, away from you, right? I mean, our thoughts are very different, right? So Prophet Muhammad, of course, assured them, right, that this is normal, right? If they are constantly in this high state of iman, right, then even the angels will salute you, right? So don't be despair, because increase and decrease of iman is a part of life, right? But it shouldn't be decreased in such a way that it would cause you and I to neglect our obligatory duties, right? Now, so how do we define iman? That's how we know it. And this is where, brothers, sometimes you just need to stick to the Arabic word, isn't it true, right? Because if you stick in, if you define it as belief, as faith, it does has a reduction in terms of or dilution of the meaning, isn't it true, right? So how do we define Iman? Anybody? The Ahlul Sunnah wa Jama'ah, right? They define it in three parts, right? In order for the to be defined as Iman, there are three elements. First of all, is element of the heart, right? And then that means the belief in the heart, yeah, belief in Allah, belief in the hereafter, and all this accountability, right? This is this belief, and this is something that's quite difficult, isn't it true? Because it is easy for you and I to believe something that we see, isn't it true? That we believe in, well, if you are driving past the speed limit, you see there's this camera, now you be more careful, you know. So this sight is more easy for you to manage your driving skills in a sense, right? And of course, if you see the police, right, then you're more cautious in terms of your driving and all this. But for things that which we have not seen before, it's quite tricky, isn't it? And all this belief, it is all from Allah. So belief in the heart must come first, right? And then after that is belief is these actions or the words come out from the mouth. Second element, right? The third element is the your actions, right? So I mean, and this must come hand in hand. You cannot have, oh, I believe in the hereafter, as you know, there are people like that, right? Believe in the hereafter, and then your actions are completely different, right? I think one of the stories in which was quite frightening for me when I came across the hadith was this story about in the hellfire there would be people, and when I read this, I would always be very careful, right, in terms of my actions that may lead to this, right? That there will be a person in hellfire who will be dragging the intestines with him, as you know, in hereafter. What happened to our body parts? Anybody? What happened to our skin? What happened to our teeth? What happened to our body parts? It gets what?
Rotten in the grave.
No, in the hellfire.
Oh.
It gets bigger.
Bigger, okay.
Because the bigger is the surface area, the more horrible the punishment, isn't it true, right? So there was this hadith, inshallah is authentic, about this person who is dragging the intestines, right? And dragging, so much so that people in hellfire recognize him. And people in hellfire who recognize him ask him, hey, weren't you the one in this life? Weren't you the one who advised us to do this, to do that, right? To remember Allah and all this. And this person said, yes, I did so, but I myself did not do what I preached, right? So in the sense that when you come across this and when we remind each other about this, right, then we quickly would check ourselves, right, whether we have done any of this. Isn't it true? I mean, humans are humans, right? There's some certain things in which, well, you ask other people to do this, but sometimes other you are not able to do that for whatever reasons. Okay, so this is it, right? The three elements must exist in terms of Iman, right? The belief in the heart, right? And then the words that come from the mouth, right? And then the actions, right? So you must have, and I'm sure you know, right? There are people who do all these actions, but they don't believe in the heart. Who are these people? The hypocrites, isn't it true? Well, the hypocrites who believe, who did the prayer, right, quickly and all this. It's all very ritualistic. And we make dua, they were not among these people, right? There are people who take care of the actions, but the words, right, always hurt other people, or the words that they say is completely un-Islamic and all this, right? So in order for Iman to exist, right, these three elements must exist hand in hand, right? So this is how the Ahlul Sunnah wa Jama'ah describe the Iman, right? Now, you may be surprised, and I'm sure you read in the Quran in Surah number 2, if I'm not mistaken, verse number 260, how even Ibrahim alayhi salam was asking Allah something to increase his iman. What did he ask Allah to do? Can you anybody remember? He was asking Allah for something in order for his iman to increase. What did he ask Allah to? Sorry?
Yeah, مقلب.
No, what did Ibrahim ask? What did he ask Allah to do? To show something. He asked Allah, well, I want to see how you bring up the dead,
Yeah. البحر, isn't it? Is it?
right? The dead
Yeah.
to life, isn't it true? Right? And Allah was, of course, Allah knows the answer, right? Why are you asking me this, right? He answered, alayhi salam, Ibrahim alayhi salam, is only to increase my faith, right? And therefore, you know the story, right? He asked Ibrahim alayhi salam to chop off, take 4 birds, right? Take 4 birds, and then chop the birds into pieces and mix them together and place them at the 4 corners, right? But keep the heads, right? Because if you don't keep, this is from tafsir, because you don't find it in the Quran, right? Keep the heads, because if you don't keep the head, then how do you know this is from that bird that you have chopped off, right? It must be from a bird that it might be from other birds that has flew away and just come to you, right? So that you must keep the heads. And then when it was done, right, all the 4 headless birds came to him, right, to demand their heads back. When Ibrahim was offering a different head to one bird, they said no. They refused to accept the head because they know this is not the head. So this increased the iman of Ibrahim. So all I'm trying to say that even the prophets, right, they have a little bit of issues, right, with the iman. So why not you and I, right? All I'm trying to say is that don't be alarmed, right? If for one reason or another, right, for about a few days, yeah, your salah, there's no khushu', right? It completely, right? Perhaps you are rushing through the prayers and all this, and even your dhikr, you're reducing the acts of reciting the Quran and doing the morning evening dhikr. So for whatever reasons, when you know that this thing happened, right, you and I, we have to quickly rectify this. Do not wait until things happen so much so that you feel that the distance between you and Allah is so far away, right? And because of that, right, you're more inclined to commit more sins, right? So do be careful in this, right, in terms of the iman, because it is something in which, subhanallah, you and I know that the stronger iman you have, then the more you are willing to do things for the sake of Allah. Now, a person may do a good deed because of several things, right? One of them perhaps because, well, I have to do it, right? Because if I don't do it, I'll get punished. Another person may do a good deed because, well, everybody's doing it, so it becomes very ritualistic, right? Another person may do the good deeds because he wants to do it and he loves to do it, right? So which one should we choose? Of course, is the last one, right? That you want to do. For example, yesterday, right? If you had followed the proper sunnah of on Thursdays, you and I know that on Thursdays and Mondays, our deeds would always be presented to Allah, right? And therefore, some people would be fasting on Mondays and Thursdays, right? So you want to do it because you want to follow the footsteps of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in which, and if you really love your deeds, right, you want to be in a state of purification. That means when you're fasting, inshallah, you and I, we are in a purified state. And when you're a purified state, and then your Allah is assessing your deeds, or your deeds are presented to Allah, then, alhamdulillah, right, you have done your best. That's one of the reasons why Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was fasting on Mondays and Thursdays. But you know that we are in London, right? In the sense that it's middle of summer. Fajr is what 2:50, right? And then Maghrib is about what 9:20, 9:24, I don't know, around there, right? It is still about more than 18 hours, right? It is a lot of work, a lot of effort, and by the time it's 6, 7 o'clock, you feel quite tired. But a person with Iman, and when you strive to do this, you love to do this, even though what you are doing may cause you a little bit of fatigue and a bit of tiredness, right? But you still want to continue to do things to please Allah. And this is how we should strive, even though on the surface, everybody was having dinner at 7 o'clock, right? Your aunties are having nice ice cream at 7:30. Somebody is having a barbecue at about 8 o'clock, right? But you are still fasting, alhamdulillah, because you want to please Allah. And this is something in which you and I, we have to try and strive to do these good deeds in order to increase our Iman, right? And you want to do good deeds because you love to do it, not because I have to do it. There's a lot of difference, because if you always think that I have to do this, then it might be a bit tricky when the going gets tough. Sorry, Chan?
Sorry, Ustad. I wouldn't do it because Allah's gonna punish me.
I'm sorry?
Can you hear me?
Almost.
I said I wouldn't do it because Allah's gonna punish me. I'd do it because Allah is merciful. It's like if my mom tells me to do something, I don't do it because she's gonna shout at me. I do it because of the unconditional love we have between each other.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. But you know, everybody's different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think technically, as long as you do the deeds and the deeds are accepted by Allah, that is sufficient. How are these accepted? First of all, you must do intention for to please Allah only. Secondly, you must follow Quran and the Sunnah. Not because you're following the Turkish way, the Somalian way, the Albanian way. There must be a source of the deeds, right? And this is important. As long as it's accepted, it's fine. But all I'm trying to say, I mean, in a short term, it's quite manageable, right? In terms of doing the good deeds, because I have to do it because I'll get punished. But in the long run, it's quite tiring, you know, because there's this lack of love that you are doing the deeds. For example, as I said, in terms of fasting, right? It is quite tricky, for people who are fasting today because it's summer and all this. But if you do it because you love Allah, because you know the reward of fasting, tremendous rewards, because the reward is from Allah. Firstly, every day you fast, your face will be turned away from hellfire for 70 years, right? There's a dog called Ar-Rayyan. So, and again, a few more deeds. Fasting will intercede for you and I on the day of judgment. So if you know this and you love to do this because of all this, then subhanallah, right? You can do the deeds, inshaAllah, until, towards the end of your life. But to do a deed because either somebody forced you to do a deed, or because or some other reasons, it is quite tiring, right? You won't last until your final breath. I'm sorry?
The family, also like your family is doing it, but you don't know what the reason is being done.
Yeah.
That is the biggest issue as well.
Yeah.
That's how I find out my case, because I think that's what led me to get to know you, because I was searching, even though I was born Muslim, fasting as long as I remember, praying it, but I did not understand it. What was the reason behind it?
Yeah. And it becomes
very explanation to it, in a sense.
Yeah, it becomes very, very ritualistic, and as I said, it can get very, very tiring, right? Two things can happen, isn't it true, right? When we do a good deeds, right? First of all, yes, alhamdulillah, because you're used to it, alhamdulillah, becomes a good habit, right? In terms of the good deeds. Secondly, of course, Allah will put this love that you have in the deeds that you do, right? So never do a deed because you're forced to do it, or there's an element your wife will nag at you and all this. So always find a way to do a deed because you want to do it. And Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, our prophet, peace be upon him, he always emphasized to us, right? Do not overburden ourselves with the deeds. But rather than that, and do the good deeds, let's say 1 or 2 weeks, and you stop completely, right? Rather than that, it is better for you and I to do a deed that is more consistent, right? Perhaps, for example, as I said before, right? Maybe if you want to wake up at tahajjud in the morning, right? Twice a week, but consistently for the rest of our lives. Rather than every day you wake up and then you pray from about 11 o'clock to about 2 o'clock. You're so tired that by the end of the first week or second week, you get so exhausted and you get very, very fed up doing it, right? That's why when Prophet Muhammad saw, I think, was it one of his wives, right? When she was praying, she was tied her hand to the pillar, wasn't it true? With a rope, right? And when asked why she did do this, because she said, well, I just want to pray tahajjud for the whole night. And she was forced by Muhammad to release this rope so that to do it consistently rather than to put in so much hard work that eventually it overcomes your body. Remember, our body also has a right over us, isn't it true? In terms of sleep, right? And in terms of marriage, of course, right? So all these kind of things, our body has a right over us. Okay? Now, any questions? Now, let's talk about the symptoms of a weak Iman. And when you have these symptoms, then it is a red light. You know that you need to do something about it. What is the first main symptoms that you will see with a weak Iman? Anybody?
When you miss prayers?
Committing sins in general, right? So this is the first sign, right? Because, I'm sure you know, right? When you do a sin and it's the first time you committed the sin, right? You will feel as if the whole world coming to an end, Allah is looking at you, and you feel so worried. But if you do not ask for forgiveness and you commit the sin for a second time, it would be less stressful, isn't it true? The third time is even worse. It's as if it's just a fly, and when you do this, it would just go away, right? So when your Iman becomes weak, right, that means you will always, right, commit sins with an excuse. Oh, I have to do this. That's why I need to find work to feed my family. That's why I will have to take this job, right? I do have people whom I know, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, right? So this person was doing a job in which involves, if I'm not mistaken, either alcohol or food that is not halal, right? When asked, why do you do this? So how do I feed my family if I don't work? And this is quite a common thing, brothers. COVID-19, isn't it? Where people are losing jobs, right? A lot of people would be made redundant even very soon, right? How would you reconcile this? Are you, or should you take this job even though it compromised the deen? Anybody? Luan?
How much do they pay?
Enough for you to get a house in Knightsbridge.
No, you shouldn't compromise the deen.
Are you sure? You do not want to be the one who dragged the intestine and the hellfire, no?
I'd rather be the one dragging my 20th wife in Jannah.
So, right? So in a sense that, so how would you overcome this? As in, or why are people doing this in terms of whatever jobs I get, I just take it because I have to feed my family. I have 3 children. I have, a house to pay the rent and all this. Why are people doing this?
I said they don't understand the profession, where it come from in the first place, or who provided it.
But the main thing that you must this person is lacking is what?
Iman.
Trust in
No.
Allah.
Oh,
No. Tawheed, isn't it true?
yeah, taqwa.
Yeah, so Tawheed, the knowledge of Allah, in which I remember, yeah, I have a new student who was trying to boast about, it's not here, of course, that's how I would say, boast about this knowledge, right? So when I asked him, so what is Tawheed? Completely no clue at all. How can this be, right? Because you and I know the most important thing that we need, the most important knowledge ever, even if you're not praying now, is Tawheed, isn't it true? Right? Because once you have Tawheed, then you will know who is the source of your income, or where does it come from. It's not from you, it's not from your boss, everything is from Allah, right? We should be embarrassed, right, you and I, that even the birds trusted Allah or trust Allah today than you and I, right? The birds every day, right? They just go out, they trust Allah and come back full, right? We have so much, we've been given so much blessings by Allah, the brains, Islam, and all this, yet we lack all this so much trust in Allah. Okay? So this is it, right? The fact that this person was telling me, right? Oh, but I have to do this in the meantime. I want to find another job. Now, is that still acceptable? Brothers?
No, but still, in it. I don't think so.
So that means, okay, in the meantime, I got no job, right? So I have to feed my family. There's this rent to pay. I have to take this job no matter what, right? Even though it's haram and all this, I take this job. But I'm also looking for another job. Is it? And it's COVID-19, right? Jobs are very scarce available. Government is going to import 3 million Hong Kong people to the UK, right? How is it acceptable Islamically?
No.
Yes, I think is completely unacceptable, right? Because, right, what makes we think that when we are at that job that we are doing, that Allah would not take our lives away in the moment of weakness? Secondly, right, the income that you earn is already haram, and that creates a very vicious cycle, isn't it true, right? That your dua won't be answered, especially when it involves alcohol is worse. Dua won't be answered for 40 days, right? So all these kind of things, it's all about knowledge, isn't it true? About trusting Allah, about Allah's the best of planner, about understanding qadar. All this work hand in hand in all these common topics that we always discuss almost on a weekly basis, and we have to really understand this because all this affects our iman, right? Of course, right? That when one loses a job and all this, it affects our iman, of course. But then, right? For me personally, always remember about people who are less than us, in which millions and millions of people are worse off than us, right? As I said last week, right? In Somalia, in Yemen, in Syria, they are much, much worse than us, right? And this is something in which we need to be grateful to Allah for what we have now, and just ask Allah, right? And trust Allah. Right, I can guarantee if you trust Allah, right, then He will provide us with things in which we can never imagine. Isn't it true? Which surah did Allah say this? Brothers? Which surah did Allah say that if we were to trust Allah, He would provide sources in which we can never imagine? Right, yes, Luan?
I was going to say two. It's
of course
not in Al Imran, it's in
What?
Al-A'raf.
No, definitely not. Right? In Surah number 65, right? At the end of the verse number 2 and in the verse number 3, right? That's how I'm trying to find out now in the Quran, right? 65, right? At the end of verse number 2. And this, I mean, when you read this verse, you should be more, this verse brings a lot of hope to you and I. Isn't it true, right? So at the end of verse number 2, right? Allah informed us, وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. And whoever so have taqwa to Allah, Allah will make him a way out of every difficulties. Firstly, in verse number 3, right? وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبْ وَمَنْ يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ بَالِغُ أَمْرِهِ قَدْ جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدْرًا. And he will provide him from sources which he could never imagine. Whoever puts his trust in Allah, then that means Allah will suffice him. Verily Allah will accomplish his purpose. And this is Allah's promise, isn't it true? It is not something out of the blue. This is when Allah says something, what does Allah mean? He promised. If we trust Allah, Allah is sufficient for us, right? And indeed, Allah has set a measure for all things. That is why this verse in which you and I recite quite a lot, hopefully, right? You have done this in our salah, is Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil. What did Allah say this in the Quran? Adam? Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil. What did Allah say in the Quran? In surah number 3, verse number 173. What does Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil means?
We've got Allah's trust, isn't it? It's Allah sufficient for us, isn't it?
Yes. So Allah alone is sufficient for us. Next one. Wa ni'mal wakil.
And with his trust is.
He's the best disposer of our affairs.
Okay.
Right? Now, when we recite this, right, things will happen beyond our imagination. Right? So, for example, in Surah number 3, verse number 173, right, in which Allah provided, that was when the Quraysh, or these believers, were trying to scare the Muslims, right, in those days. Beware of the enemies, they are in great numbers. But that only increases in the faith when they say, Hasbunallah wa ni'mal, because everything happens with Allah. Isn't it true? It's not, nothing happens, yeah, if Allah wills it not to happen. And therefore, this trust in Allah is a huge topic. Even when we go to the house, we will say, Bismillahi tawakkaltu ala Allah wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, right? In the name of Allah, we put our trust in Allah. There's no might and power except with Allah. Isn't it true? Right? So the first symptoms of a weak Iman, right, it is always an inclination to commit sins, right? And once the sins are committed more often, what happened to the heart? It gets hardened. This is second symptoms. Once the heart gets hardened, what happened?
It becomes easier to commit sins.
Yeah, because Allah's light are not able to penetrate the heart. That's why when we do a sin, we do sins every day. Isn't it true, right? Ask Allah for forgiveness, sincerely fulfilling all the criteria. Then the spots will get wiped out, inshaAllah. Isn't it true, right? And Allah's light can still come. Allah's light can still come and guide us, right? But when it gets darker and darker, and eventually there's no light of Allah that can come to the heart, and that's it. It's game over, isn't it true? If Allah does not guide us, we are completely, right, under the control of the sins. And it is something which you do not want to. And of course, then your Iman gets even lower than that. Okay? And then after that, what happened? Right? Then all our other acts of worship become very ritualistic, or are done very poorly, if ever we are doing it. So missing Fajr prayer is no big deal. Missing Asar prayer is no big deal. Right? The most important prayer of the 5 obligatory prayers would be which prayer the most important?
Jummah.
No, no, I'm talking about the 5 daily prayers, which is the most important.
I'm joking. I don't know, Sheikh. Is it Maghrib, maybe?
Asr and Fajr.
It is Asar prayer, isn't it? Asar prayer, right? Allah said, I can't remember which verse, I'll tell you later, inshaAllah, that the most important prayer is the middle prayer, isn't it true? Which is the Asar prayer, according to many scholars. Why Asar prayer?
I don't know. I know the most ajr is Fajr, right?
No, I didn't say the most reward.
Isn't the most?
I said the most important prayer.
That true is the most reward Fajr.
In a sense, Fajr and Isha prayer, isn't it true? Why?
Fajr because you have to wake up.
Because the munafiqs find it difficult.
Yes, I mean, but more importantly, if you were to do this prayer in the mosque for the brothers, right, you get the reward of praying for the whole night. Isn't it true?
Hajj, isn't it? Yeah.
For Fajr and Isha. So if you pray Fajr in the mosque, you only without Isha in the mosque, then as if you get the reward as you pray half the night.
Okay.
Right? Okay. But why is Asr the most important prayer?
Is it because of the middle? Because that's the one that people neglect, isn't it?
Yes, that is the one in which people are busy in the office, people are busy with the dunya and all, and that is what is the most important prayer, the middle prayer. Why middle? Middle as in, middle because Fajr first, Zohar second, and Asr is the middle of the 5 prayers, right? And this is something in which we have to really take care of. So when a person is committing, because of low iman, you do more sins, and then your heart gets hardened, then your deeds itself will get affected. Isn't it true? Right? People will do deeds very poorly, right? In Surah number 4, verse number 142, Allah described them, وَلَا تَذْكُرُونَ اللَّهَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا, and they do not remember Allah but a little. But they're talking about the hypocrites, right? And this is something in which we make dua that we are among these people. So among them, for example, then you come across these people who delay the Umrah, delay the Hajj. Isn't it true? Right? Can go to holidays, can go to Malaga, you can go to America, right? And then what comes to important deeds like Umrah or Hajj, you delay it. Right? Okay, let me ask you a question, right? If a person dies, right, having the money in the bank account and all this, but yet it hasn't gone to Hajj, is it considered as a sin?
Yes, because you didn't fulfill one of the rights, isn't it, Sheikh?
If a person has money in the account, or has been to America, has been to China, has been to Japan for a holiday, right, but has not been to Hajj, right? Would these people be accountable on the day of judgment?
Yes,
of course, because Hajj is one
of the pillar, Sheikh. One of the pillars.
Yeah, first of all, it's a pillar. Pillar means you need to take care of that journey first. Even the hadith, right? Prophet Muhammad in the hadith, authentic hadith, do not make to any journey to any places except to the Mecca, Medina, and Masjid al-Aqsa in Palestine. Right? Perhaps after that, well, you can go to whatever you want to see. Want to see your good friend Trump, you can go to see Trump, right? And all the best with the COVID-19 there, right? So this is it, right? Are we still online?
Yes,
yes.
Sorry, something happened with my computer. Okay. So yeah, all right. Alhamdulillah. So this is it, right? In the sense that all your deeds will be affected, right? Now, if you have all this money and you don't make this journey to Hajj or even Umrah, right? Must you blame yourself?
Yeah.
Because always remember, the journey to go to Hajj or Umrah is only upon Allah's invitation. You're not invited, no matter how much money you have. Even though you have a nice house in Knightsbridge, nice house in Kensington, right? It doesn't matter. If not invited, means you're not invited. right? I even have the stories, and I'm sure you might know this, right? Adam, about some people in the mosque who has actually stepped at that place, right, to Hajj, but at the airport, immediately he was imprisoned, yeah, for saying something against the ruler for whatever reason, right? So in the sense that, so even though you are there at the place itself, the Holy Land, as long as you haven't completed the Hajj, that means you're still not invited by Allah to complete the fifth pillar of Islam, right? So this is something in which you and I, we have to take care of our Iman, because it affects all this. It's a domino effect, right? Sins, the heart, and your deeds are all affected by this Iman. And these are the symptoms, yeah, of a weak Iman, right? You cannot say, I'm not judging, of course, brothers, right? You cannot say a person who has money, who've been to holidays, can see all the Facebook and Instagram photos in Switzerland, in China, in Japan, in Indonesia, in America, right? But haven't been to Hajj. You cannot say that person has a high Iman, isn't it true? Do you agree? Right?
Yes, Sheikh.
Yeah, but Sheikh, how do we stop? Like, how do we not use the idea that Allah hasn't invited us? Like, how do we use that as a means? How do we stop using that as a means of justification? If that makes sense.
I understand, but because right, there are a lot of people who think that, oh, I'm still young, I'm still 30, I'm still 40, I'm not dead yet, almost dying, then I can go to change myself and repent to Allah. Do you know what I mean? Right? So there are people who have this mentality, and that itself, guidance is from Allah. Now, brothers, right? Guidance will never come to you and me, isn't it true? We have to look for guidance. We have to make the effort to look for guidance. Alhamdulillah, right? The few of you who are here in front of me, you made the effort to attend this class in order, inshaAllah, to get guidance. It is true, a bit from Allah, right? So it all depends on your effort, right? It all depends on your effort and my effort to ensure, if I want to meet Allah personally, when Allah is at the lowest heaven in the sky, to wake up at about perhaps 1:30 or 2 o'clock to pray tahajjud, isn't it true? It all depends on your effort. And if you were to do this, and that means, inshaAllah, right, you will be guided to commit less sins. And because of that, you'll be guided to go to Hajj. Do you agree? Anybody disagree?
Aye.
No.
No, Sheikh.
Right?
But
So
was gonna
in a sense that if you are, constantly, inshallah, I'm not don't talk about COVID-19, right? Going to the mosque, right? After this or before COVID-19, right? Putting an effort to please Allah, help the poor, and all this. And inshallah, Allah will invite you. I have experience with some of my students. They got no money at all, but I just tell them, don't worry, ask Allah to invite you. You'll get invited. I think about 3 of them immediately got Allah's invitation. Inheritance come in, got some money from some people, or just invite the people, just spend them or give them the money to go to Umrah, right? So this is it. I mean, the ability of you and I to be able to go to Umrah or Hajj, or to do any acts of worship, even to pray at night, standing up in front of Him at about 3 o'clock for Fajr prayer, is all upon Allah's invitation, isn't it true?
Yeah, but Sheikh, I think it is invitation, because I remember when I used to work, I asked them Umrah to go to Umrah, and then what happened? I was thinking that Umrah takes longer, so so the following months I asked them to go to Hajj, and they allowed me to go to the Hajj. But I was thinking like the Umrah takes the same time as the Hajj.
Yeah.
But I didn't think that the Umrah is just going around one time, and
yes, it's much shorter.
The Hajj rather than asking the Umrah.
Yeah.
So and then the next year they invite that. I said to them, I want to go to Hajj, and I'm going for 2 months, and they allow me to go to.
Yeah.
It's from Allah in a sense.
Yes, it is. Right? Can you imagine those people who have the intention to go to Hajj this year? Technically, Allah have rejected the invitation, isn't it true? Do you agree?
Yes, in a sense, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that is why some of my students came. They talked to me because a few of them I was pushing them go to Hajj a few years ago, and they say, Alhamdulillah, I went to Hajj a few years ago or last year and all this, because if I didn't go to Hajj this year, I couldn't go, and they realized this fact, right? So this is something in which you and I, we have to really look carefully about our purpose in life. What is our purpose in life? It must be a life in which would lead to worshipping Allah.
Yes.
Right? And I can share with you very clearly. I used to like to read books like, when I was younger, especially, right? Involves dragons, because you're escaping to another world. You see, involves knighthood and all this. And then I was asking myself, how does this help me in my purpose of life? Do you know what I mean?
I could never read fictional books. Always fiction.
So you read what? Donald Trump's book?
Subtle flex.
No, at the moment, I'm reading this.
Well, horror movies and all that, you know.
What's that?
I used like my horror movie Sheikh.
He converted to Islam after he found the body of Pharaoh when
yeah. Alhamdulillah. Yeah.
He wrote this book, and there's so many miracles. Subhanallah.
Subhanallah. Right. So in terms of our daily activities itself, we have to prioritize our time. Let's face the fact, brothers. You and I are very busy with work. Is it true? Right. The most that we have, perhaps, after minus sleeping, after minus our work, after minus all these things that we have to do and all this. Some people take 1 hour to shower and all this, right? After minus, you only have not much time left to worship Allah, isn't it true? Right? And yet you use this time to do many silly things that has completely no purpose in life. And this is what you and I, we need to prioritize. And whatever it is that we choose in life, right? Make sure that we understand, right, that this life, right, what we want eventually, it is a permanent life in the hereafter. This is so transient, right? And yet many people are making this life as if, they are going to live in this life forever, right? So we do have to be careful about priority in life. Okay, so besides, so we are talking those who just came in, right? We were talking about the symptoms of a weak Iman, right? The next one, right? So as a revision, the first one was about what they call it, committing sins, right? The more you commit sins, then your heart. Second one, your hearts get covered with the sins. Allah's light doesn't come in, and then it affects your acts of worship, right? And then after that, right, there is no tranquility in whatever things that you do in terms of your salah, right? There's no khushu', isn't it true, right? And you always get angry, irritable at the times when things happen to you in terms of Allah's qadar. You are so angry, right? Why are things happening to me, right? So this is the next thing that people have with low iman, right? You don't believe in qadar at Allah, qadar at all, right? You always take things as if, oh, I deserve better than this, right? Not knowing actually when Allah tests us, everything that happens to a believer, inshaAllah, it is a win-win situation, isn't it true? Right? If in authentic hadith, if a good thing happens to a believer and he is grateful to Allah, then he gets the reward of his gratefulness, right? If a bad things happen to a believer and he is patient, again, right, he will get the reward of his patience. It's always a win-win situation, right?
Sheikh, in terms of patience,
yes,
what would that look like in terms of a real life problem? Because I feel like it can be wishy-washy, if that makes sense.
No, in what sense?
Like you can be patient in terms of like enjoying the problem, but like what things should we avoid? So obviously we should avoid things like complaining, but
yes.
What other subtle things are we to avoid to get the rewards of our patience?
Now, patience, as you know, is not just about, okay, Allah tests me with poverty, where I got no job, for example, I have to be patient. It's not just like that, right? To wake up in the morning for Fajr, it requires a lot of patience, right? To obey Allah living in the West, right? When we have our work, when our family and all this, it requires a lot of patience, right? So patience, I have many levels of patience in which you need to have, right? Everything requires patience. That is why you and I know, right, that Imam Shafi'i said, if this verse, if this surah were to be only one revealed in the Quran, is sufficient for us. Wal asri innal insana lafi khusr. Right? By time man is at a loss. Illa alladhina amanu, except those who believe. Wa amilu salihat, and do good righteous deeds. Wa tawasaw bil haqq, and remind one another about the truth, like what we are doing now. Wa tawasaw bis sabr, and remind another about patience. Where Allah said in another verse of the Quran, in Surah number 2, verse number 153, Ya ayyuhalladina amanu sta'inu bisabri wassalah, innallaha ma'as sabirin. Oh, you believe, seek help in patience and pray. Verily, Allah is always with the patient. Right? So this is a huge topic on its own. Right? But for now, suffice for us to say, right? Even when somebody happened to abuse us, right, or to do things to us, I'm sure you know, right? I heard so many complaints from my students about their own family members, right, did something to them and all this, right? In Islam, are we, when evil things happen to us from other people, do we do the same evil things to them?
No.
No.
No, because Allah literally said in Surah number 41, if I'm not mistaken, verse number 36, if I'm not mistaken, idfa billatihi ahsan, repel evil with goodness, right? Revenge has not and never be in the vocabulary of a true Muslim, isn't it true? Right? So that one day we're going to talk about patience, inshallah. But for now, suffice for us to say, right, that a person with low iman, as one of the symptoms, is that there's no tranquility in the heart. Right? Because of the sins they committed, because the prayer or the acts of worship are not well done, poorly done, and all this. There's no tranquility. Remember, Allah said in Surah number 13, verse number 28, right? Ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub. Right? Only those who remembers Allah, truly those who remembers Allah, would heart finds rest. Right? So a person with low iman, right, there's no time to remember Allah, isn't it true? Right? Because, right, that you're busy with other things. Okay? Now, other things that are symptoms is like the verses of the Quran are not affected. You don't get affected by the Quran. Right? The most you find, oh, this Imam Sudai is so nice, so beautiful. Oh, this Shuram, whatever this reciters, right? So beautiful. That's it. It just ends at the ear. It doesn't go in the heart. I mean, what's the point? That's why I did I say this last week? I'm not into this Quranic competition and all this that people recite it so beautifully. I mean, if it ends in the ear and doesn't go in the heart, there's not much use in the Quran, isn't it true? The Quran is supposed to guide you and I, right, to be better in terms of our obedience to Him, in terms of our purpose of life. Right? This is a book in which there's no doubt a guidance for those with taqwa. Right? If it's just and in the ear, beautiful recitation, without you and I pondering over the verses, increase our iman, and that doesn't have the effect that it should have by us reading the Quran. Isn't it true? Right? We need to be affected. That's why where did Allah say in the Quran that the believers are only those, number 1, 2, 3, who are the believers in the Quran? Where did Allah say in the Quran? Anybody? Which verse in the Quran did Allah say, if you are a believer, you would have this.
The Surah 8?
Yes.
Verse, was it 2 or?
Yes, verse number 2, isn't it true? Right? So Surah number 8, right, in verse number 2, right? Innamal mu'minuna alladhina idha, right? The believers are only those when Dhukirallahu wajilat qulubuhum. When Allah is mentioned, they feel a fear in the heart. Wa idha tuliyat alayhim ayatuhu zadatum imana. And when his verses are recited unto them, they increase the faith. وَعَلَى رَبِّهِمْ يَتَوَكَّلُونَ, and they put their trust in their Lord. Right? So this is it. This is supposed to be the Quran, right? Something for you and I to look at it, to listen, right? To understand, and at the same time to try and ponder over the verses and to implement. Didn't Allah say in the Quran that those who with the Muhammad ﷺ is going to complain to Allah about the people who deserted the Quran? Where did Allah say this? Brothers, where did Allah say this about on the day of judgment, our Prophet Muhammad ﷺ will complain against you and I? Right, in Surah number 25, yeah, in verse number number 30, if I'm not mistaken, 25:30, in which on the day of judgment, right, he will complain about those who deserted the Quran. Desert doesn't mean that, it's not just mean that you don't read, right? It also means that you read but you don't ponder, or you read, you ponder, and you don't act upon it, right? And this is very important, right? That the Quran is not, right? That it is not just to listen to the beautiful voice of the reciters, right? But it is also for you and I to actually change ourselves. We need a lot of changes in our life, isn't it true? In order to have this straight path that leads to Him directly, inshaAllah. Okay? Now, the next one, a person with low Iman, right? One of the symptoms is, of course, we just discussed just now, he is negligent in remembering Allah, right? Now, of course, brothers, I'm a solicitor. I can't remember Allah when I'll talk to my patients about the immigration problems, of course, right? But other than that, right, in the tube, right, on morning and evening, this is Friday, right, inshallah, by the end of the day today, we are supposed, inshallah, make dua to Allah. Isn't it true that one of the best times to make dua to Allah, right? And when it comes to prayer time, right, we have to try to pray on time at the earliest stated time, inshallah. So all these kind of things, right? That if your heart or your Iman is low, right, then you'll be lacking in the remembering of Allah. Okay? Another sign that actually he does not get angry or feels violated when the commands of Allah. Sorry, he does not get angry or disturbed when the commands of Allah are violated. So, for example, we have this in the UK, this gay marriage, isn't it true? Right? People having this gay marriage in the UK, right? Do you feel upset? Or do you feel that, well, it's their life anyway, they can do whatever they want? And we have to ask ourselves, right? If your Iman is low, you will think that, well, you will adopt these secular values, which was very commonly in places like used to be in Turkey and all this, right? Secularism means, well, Islam is Islam. Islam is in the house, right? Other than that, in the public, well, there's a law of the country, which is more important. There's no such thing, right? Every law is the law of Allah, isn't it true? Right? Which we have to apply, right? So that's why Islam itself means it's a way of life. It's not just about you and I just go to the mosque or pray. And that's not about it. It's a way of life, how we deal with things all the time, right? So a person with low Iman would not get disturbed by this when Allah's law has been violated, right? That in when there's a government, like in France, if you're living in France, if there is a ruling of you cannot wear hijab in public places and all this, right? Of course, you'll be very, very upset. Okay. The next one is that he loves to be in a gathering and be engrossed in talking nonsense. That means in a gathering, right? You're just talking not about the deen, but talk about football, talking about things that has no concern regarding the deen and the hereafter. All right. Another one is that he is arrogant, right? Arrogant. So, for example, right? Do you know that in Islam, right, it is disliked, right? Let's say we are in a gathering here, right? And if I were to come in, that you stand up, and if I like people to stand up for me, what is the consequence? Anybody? In the hadith? Listen to this hadith from Muawiyah, right? The one who loves that another man stand up for him, then let him rest assured of his sitting place in the fire. And this is quite important, right? And even, for example, let's say this room is so crowded, right? People are sitting down, and I come in, and I expect somebody to stand up, right? And I sit at the place because it's a very strategic place, right? And the person to sit somewhere else, and that itself is not allowed. Okay, so do be careful, because all this, right, has been legislated in authentic hadith, and that you and I, we have to be careful. And all this, if you expect this to happen, it's also a sign and symptoms of a person with low iman. Okay, the next one is stinginess of the wealth that Allah has given you, right? If you feel that, well, you know, I need the money for this, even though you have enough money to spare to help others, and you're not giving money to people who are suffering in Palestine, in Syria, in Yemen, and all this, right? That is a sign of a person with low iman. Not knowing that the money that you have is not from you, right? It is from Allah, right? And this is something that we have to realize. If you know Tawheed, you know that Allah is the only one who provides. Not because of your hard work, not because of your boss' kindness to allow you to work, but it is from Allah. Yes, you need to put in effort to get the money, but eventually, whatever thing's in the bank account is from Allah, right? And as I said, I think was it yesterday, right? When you pay zakat to people, right? Never have this impression that, well, you know, I'm doing them a favor, I have this money, I'm so kind. That's not the attitude you are not supposed to have, right? The zakat money that you paid is an entitlement for the poor. And for the rest, the others, the 8 people who beneficiary to the zakat. And you have to remember this, okay? Because a lot of people think that, oh, I'm so kind, I'm so nice, I give the money to others because of my kindness. No, subhanallah, right? It is not the case at all, right? And sometimes, you know, Allah will give us the wealth. It's not just about blessing, but to test us, isn't it true? Right? Whether we are going to keep the money or we are going to help the poor, right? In fact, we know, and we discussed before a few times in our class, right? So some people, Allah give them the wealth to punish them, not as a blessing, right? And what is the word for them? Brothers, what is the term that Allah used, right? That this is to punish some people, not like the Pharaoh, you know, Pharaoh, some other people that we know from the Quran, right? That Allah gave them this money, not as a blessing, but to punish them. Because you know, right, with money, the more money you have, the more you think that it's not enough. So you work hard in order to get this money. Even though it's halal or haram, you still get the money. So the word Allah used is? Anybody? Istidraj. Right? Istidraj is a term in which wealth are given to people as a form of punishment. Right? That they have more, the more money they have, the more they will forget Allah. And again, Allah gave us many examples in the Quran, right, about these people, right? The people in Surah Al-Kahf, right? The one Allah gave the one Allah gave the gardens, the water, right? The blessings and all this. He forgot Allah. Okay? And Qarun, right? Qarun has all the wealth in order for Allah to punish him. Okay? The next one, okay? I'm going to finish quickly, right? Belittling good deeds, right? A person with low iman would say, oh, this is just a sunnah. Why should I do a sunnah, right? Subhanallah, there are judgment, brothers. You and I, we're going to scramble. We're going to really, that's why all of us will say what? Ya nafsi nafsi. Say, oh, myself, because we are scrambling for the good deeds that we have. We do not want others to approach us because we are afraid that we're going to ask for our good deeds, right? So do not belittle any good deeds, even if you smile to a brother, right? Do a sunnah, right? After wudu, right? I think sunnah after wudu is a huge thing, isn't it? What is the reward of sunnah after wudu? Brothers? What is the reward?
Something with Noor. I forgot.
No, what is the hadith? How did it come about?
Is it when the Prophet heard the footsteps of Bilal in?
Yes, right. So Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was above the 7 heavens, right, for Isra Mi'raj, getting the command to pray 5 times a day, he heard Bilal's footstep in Jannah, right? He didn't know it was Bilal because Jibril told him. Then when he came back to Mecca, he asked, what did you do, right, to get that honor? And he said, Bilal, after I do my wudu, I would do 2 sunnah prayer, right? So do not belittle all these sunnah deeds, because another virtues of sunnah, it is to gain Allah's love, isn't it true? In hadith, right? That Allah's.
Who told Bilal to do it? Bilal, who teach him to do that 2 rak'ah?
Yes.
I don't know.
No. Now, a sunnah is not just about what Prophet ﷺ did, isn't it true? Right? Okay. It's also what the Sahaba did, and Muhammad ﷺ did not say, no, why you do this, right? If Muhammad ﷺ is silent about this deed, it becomes a sunnah.
No, what I mean is, who taught Bilal in the beginning, I'm saying?
No, he just did this.
Okay.
Now, let's think carefully. Why would one do a sunnah prayer after wudu? Why would one do that?
To show like the gratefulness to be able to do wudu, maybe.
Precisely.
As one example.
Yes, I think so. Right? We talked just now before. Whenever we are invited by Allah to do any good deeds, it's an invitation to face Allah. To be able to do wudu itself in order to prepare to do your salah is a huge honor. Brothers, right? You are the subject of the queen, isn't it true? Did your queen invite you to Buckingham Palace? Never, isn't it true? Right? But Allah is inviting us every day to meet him, isn't it true? Which is an honor, right? So this is why you and I, right? If we can, of course, it's sunnah, right? After we do a wudu, right? Don't do anything else. Don't mess around with your social media and all this. Just do 2 rak'ah prayer just to show our gratefulness to Allah, right? Why do we do 2 sunnah prayer when we enter the mosque? Same thing, isn't it true? To be able to go to the mosque itself, to be invited to go to Allah's house. It's a big honor. Therefore, when we enter the mosque, to show our gratefulness to Allah that, alhamdulillah, we are here in the mosque, we pray 2 rak'ah of Tahiyatul Masjid. Okay? So all this, we have to remember the effects and benefits of all this, so that inshallah we are able to get the reward, for the deed. So it's not just about you and I just do it because everybody is doing it. We need to know the impact, inshallah, why we are doing these deeds. Okay? Any questions?
Yeah, the 2 sunnah after wudu.
Yes.
If we're going to the masjid, do we still have to do 2 sunnah after wudu? We're on our way to the masjid anyway, so we're going to do 2 sunnah again when we get to the masjid as well.
Yes.
Or we're in the masjid. What about if we're in the masjid and we're doing the wudu in the masjid?
Yes.
So
I will do 4.
Okay.
Right? I would not combine my intention unless there is only about 2 minutes or 3 minutes time before the prayer starts. Then I do whatever it is, and may Allah accept both my intention for the sunnah of the mosque, Tahiyatul Masjid, and for the wudu. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Right. But other than that, if I have time, I will do 4 rak'ah, 2 separately.
Okay. Exactly.
Okay.
Sheikh.
Yes.
You know how we were talking about going to Hajj, and like not having the money, and if someone else gives us the money or offers the money, then like obviously that's Allah's invitation. I wanted to ask, if we're not in a good like financial situation and someone else is asking us offering to send us to Hajj with their money, is it a sin to decline that because you're worried about having to pay them back after or whatever?
Now, that's a good question, right? You, at no time for Hajj must you and I borrow money, right? Hajj is only obligatory for those who can afford it, of course, and with Allah's invitation, right? So unless the person said, well, this is for you, right, for you to go to Hajj willingly without having the need to pay, then accept it, of course, right? But you shouldn't accept it when it's a loan. Then your Hajj becomes not obligatory because you don't have money to go to Hajj. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand. That's right? The same for Umrah, right?
Yeah, same thing, of course, right? Should you go to Umrah first or should you go to Hajj directly first?
I'm not sure. I think it's Umrah first, but I'm not sure.
Now, for me personally, it depends on your financial ability, right? All of us know our limits in a sense. If we can only afford, people have different financial capabilities. If you can only afford to go because you have your wife, perhaps, right? Then you save money for this Hajj, inshallah. But if you have a little bit more money, I would always advise you to go to Umrah first, right? Because then you'll be more confident when you go to do your Hajj. It is a completely different thing when you watch over the TV and when you experience that. It's completely different. It's very overwhelming for me personally, right? When you go there, right? Especially for the first time, right? So if you have been to Umrah first, alhamdulillah, right, then you would know what to expect. And the rituals or the manasik of the Hajj, then you would be more familiar with it because as the first part of the Hajj is to do your Umrah is what you have been doing in your Umrah anyway, right? So you would know how to gauge about the crowd, to be patient, what to expect, how some of Muslims misbehave themselves, right, around the Kaaba. Right, so all these kind of expectations you have experience, so that would make your Hajj, inshallah, you'll be able to focus more on other things. Okay. Now,
sorry, quick question.
Yes.
What reward do you get for Tahiyatul Masjid?
What reward?
Yeah.
No, it's just about the sunnah, and it's not just a sunnah, right? It's more of, they call it stress sunnah, right? Because how did the hadith came about? Because Muhammad was giving a sermon on Friday, wasn't it true? Right? And one person walked in and he sat down, and Prophet could have addressed him privately, wasn't it true? Right? He did not. He stopped the sermon completely. He asked the person in front of everyone, have you done the 2 sunnah prayer? He said no. And then if you have not done so, stand up now and do 2 raka'ah. Right? So on the basis of how he said and the emphasis, right, that he stopped the whole sermon in order to ask him to do the 2 sunnah prayer of Tahiyatul Masjid, it clearly shows that it's not a minor sunnah, it's quite a stress sunnah. Right? And the reward is as in any sunnah, right? So in general, it's about to patch up your obligatory prayers. If happen we are missing it or that less khushu in our prayers. Okay?
So it's more important to do that than to do 2 rakahs after wudu.
Yes, for sure, right? Because of emphasis of this. Whereas the 2 sunnah after wudu was only done by Bilal itself.
Yeah.
Right. So on that basis, if I have no time and I have only 2-3 minutes to do 2 sunnah 2 raka'ah sunnah prayer, I would choose to do the Tahiyatul Masjid, and perhaps Allah may reward me also for the wudu also, inshallah.
Sure. Okay.
Now, okay, so let's continue now, right? So how do we now, knowing about the symptoms of a weak Iman, right? How do we now ensure, right, that our Iman is always, we try to be intact, right? That we don't let it slide down until it causes all the symptoms that we discussed just now. How do we ensure that, firstly? Anybody? Brothers? First of all, seek knowledge, isn't it true? That's very important, right? That's why you and I are discussing about this, right? Secondly, yeah, make dua to Allah, right? That ask Allah for guidance in our prayer. So make sure we know the meaning. So don't take the acts of worship as a ritual thing, but make sure we truly understand what we are doing. And we feel from the, I'm sure you know, right, brothers, that sometimes when you do your prayers, sometimes it's good, sometimes we are humans, right? Sometimes we can have khushu, sometimes it's completely rubbish, right? Because we have all this little time to do it. And we know the quality of prayer is not as good as it should be, right? So make sure that we understood what we are reciting, right? The next one, we should continue, right, to with acts of worship that may benefit us, even though it's not Ramadan and all this, right? So like the fasting Mondays and Thursdays, we should continue, even though it's quite difficult for 18 hours. But the benefits of fasting, subhanAllah, we only realize it in the hereafter, right? Other things, for example, when we recite the Quran, right? Again, make sure that we understand what we are reciting. So don't just listen and end up in the ear, or just recite and end up in the mouth. It must come from the heart with an ability, inshaAllah, to have this ability to have a change in our lives, right, with Allah's will. Okay. The next one is, again, Ramadan is not here. There's no Tarawih prayer. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't, right, wake up earlier than Fajr in order to stand in front of Allah upon His invitation to do tahajjud prayer. Isn't it true? Right? So this would, inshallah, and if you have been to tahajjud prayer, you should know that it is quite special, right? Because everybody sleeping, you're awake in order to face Allah, right? Make sure you have the right companions, right? So that you're able to be among those who are advising or talking about the deen, other than talking about, your holidays in Spain and all this, okay? Seek refuge in Allah from shaitan, of course, right? Continue to be generous, right, to help others, inshallah, right? Remind one another what we're doing now, yeah? And join good, forbid evil, right? About things that might improve our deen. If you talk about hellfire, talk about paradise and all this, I'm sure it would affect ability to increase our Iman, isn't it true, right? Or visiting the graves, right? When you visit graves, inshallah, we remind ourselves of death, right? And remind one another that death is impending. It can come at any time. And once death comes, that's it, right? Whatever things we are supposed to prepare should have been prepared, right? I'm sorry, I'm rushing because I have another class with the sisters after this, right? Now, the next one, it is to understand the purpose of life. Whenever you do anything, and this is what I do, right? Whenever I do anything and I may be obsessed with it, for example, always ask, does this improve my purpose of life? Is this what I'm there for? I'm not saying, brothers, that, it's not allowed for you to watch football, not allowed to play some games, computer games. Of course not, right? But there's always a limit that you should do it. And you and I know, right? Playing all these games, social media and all this, it may be a little bit more overwhelming because it becomes an addiction, isn't it true? That you're addicted to do it. Oh, it's okay, half an hour. Half an hour becomes 1 hour. 1 hour becomes 2 hours. 2 hours become 3 hours, isn't it true? Right? This is how it is, these games and all this social media, right? The next one, of course, it is to not taking all this acts of worship as a ritual. You must, inshallah, love what you're doing, right? And understand what you're doing. And all this, inshallah, is through our seeking of knowledge, right? And through Allah's guidance of our deeds. Be patient at all times, right? In terms of when things are fleeting us, right? Know that if Allah has decreed for things to happen to us, right? Nothing can prevent this from happening to us, right? And this is belief in the qadar that we are supposed to believe as part of our 6 articles of faith, is neutral, right? So when you have this patience and belief in qadar, then you would say, well, it has been decreed I have cancer anyway, right? So I need to be patient. But of course, as I said many times, right? You know that you have diabetes. You know that you have high blood pressure. Then you are still taking in sweets, drinking Coke, or the people who have blood pressure, right? You are still eating all these McDonald's, not McDonald's, Muslims not supposed to be eating all these burgers and kebabs and all this, right? Then you have to be responsible for your actions, isn't it true? Right? So know that, all these things, right, are happen because of qadar, right? And you just need to trust Allah to continue to have good opinions of Allah, right? And to continue to worship Him, no matter what happens to us, right? Because if you don't do this, then shaitan might come into us and affects our iman, and that's it. But the whole symptoms of what we discussed would happen, right? That's about it, right? I hope that inshallah today's talk are able to inshallah inspire you and I to try and at all times in this COVID-19, right? It's a bit depressing. It's going to get better, inshallah. Hope that this is able to, inshallah, all of us are able to look into ourselves, right? See where we go wrong. We call it al-muhasabah, right? Keep into account of what we do, and inshallah, and with Allah's guidance, we will all be able to improve our iman and taqwa. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to guide us in the right path. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to improve our iman and improve our taqwa. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us good health and grant all of us Jannatul Firdaus. Right, subhanallahi wa bihamdihi asyhadu an la ilaha illa anta wa astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa assalamu alal mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Right, so we'll see you tomorrow, inshallah. Sorry, my sister's class is going to start now, inshallah. Right?
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu.
We join in the sister class.
Assalamu alaikum. Take care.